Okay, we are back. I want to develop the art of speaking. And I believe that the more I study and the more I am learning about myself and spirituality, and then on top of that, more things that I can study, like, let's say, computer science. I've been learning how to use Linux and learning more about how a computer can work. And then there's other areas that I want to study, like psychology further. I've learned my fair share through learning about Carl Jung, learning the different waves of psychology, all the way up to the third wave psychology. And, even kind of like learning about Edward Bernays and, how manipulation can happen to people, to the masses, to oneself. I want to learn more about that. But I want to learn how to speak and articulate better. I think I do a fair job at it so far. And the mastery of it will be amazing. Speech is an extremely effective tool to affect someone else. Think about it as this way of manipulating frequencies to affect someone's soul, manipulating vibrations in the air in order to target parts of some people's psyche. And you can use it to manipulate, but you can also use it to illuminate. There are certain things that people are not privy to within themselves that when you speak and talk about it, you can actually shine a light and illuminate that area so that they now have the choice to engage with that part of themselves in order to transcend it, or it agitates them. That's also good. When certain things are agitated in another person, that is like that's the beginning process. The pain kind of shakes them up and gets them to move, whether it's regressive. They sometimes that will make them feel vulnerable, and now they have to hide by smoking weed, or jacking off, or drinking. It makes them vulnerable, and they go into their regressive tendencies, and there is merit to that. When people go into their regressive tendencies, they go through this process in life where they go down, they go downward. And while people think that's negative, you usually have to go down before you go up. And so there's this alchemical process happening, and that you may have triggered by talking to them. You say something that is the truth, and it permeates all of their egotistical thought processes that have been generated. This happened to me. This has always happened to me because in my life, if I'm going to be real with myself, I have always operated from this place of generated ego, to say the least, where I wasn't being real with myself on a lot of different things. I did a lot to seem better than I actually was, and I lost a lot of friends because of it. I distanced myself from other people because of it, and my shitty behaviors, based off of my own egotistical patterns, has led me to being in this position where a lot of my friendships have disappeared or ceased, whether it be my doing or just natural drift. But people have been set up in my life to tell me the harshest truths that permeated everything in my head that I told myself and struck to my core. And it did put me down that path of hedonism, of wanting to hide, of just trying to feel good for the sake of feeling good because I was hurt and burned. I ran. I ran away. I was a pussy. It was great because it put me right down the path where I needed to be a pussy, engage with my vices, and be burned by it. Someone's words did that. Now, on the illumination path, people have also been put in my life, whether it's through the internet or through, people strategically being placed in my life, or even my family. My father is especially one of those people who have said things throughout my life that years ago it didn't stick, but now it's like, oh, that's what that means. People have said things that allowed me to contemplate, you know, that I've held on to. And I don't know if this is a byproduct of time. Usually, delayed gratification in all of its resonance will lead to a better outcome. And the delayed gratification, or the delayed effort of a good message has done wonders for me. Um, I know I have lost. I tend to tangent and lose the plot of where I'm going. I'm getting better with that. A lot of speech is focus and having an image that you are using your will to portray through speech and effort. I'm learning this now. Things are so wonderful and magical at this point in my life, and I want to learn how to speak better, to hopefully be one who agitates or one who illuminates. Um, an example of somebody who has agitated me in my life was a past relationship with somebody who I heavily masturbated, and her little brother was caught with porn. And at the time, the way that I was learning to deal with it is by self forgiveness and, not rocking the boat when it comes to, ripping away somebody's vice from them. You kind of have to attack the root. And that's essentially where I wanted to go with my argument when it came to talking to this person who she just caught her little brother with pornography. But she didn't she wasn't having any of that. She was like, yeah, I don't want him turning out like you. And that hit me because this is also the same person who told me that, you know, a, a bunch of harsh truths about myself. And, what I recognize now is that it was coming from a place of maliciousness, but reactive maliciousness, it almost as if this was a way she learned how to say certain things to other people to kind of also combat them, preemptively combat what they can possibly say to her. Um, and also as a defense mechanism, but I didn't see much of that. More so the former than the latter. But that was shattering. It made me seem small, and I did more, masturbate more because, it was a way to avoid, paradoxically, what she told me. You know, I did try to resist it, but there was, in that resistance, I wasn't successful in attacking the root cause of why I masturbated. You know, it took years to really kind of understand through, going through that habit and pattern over and over again. It took years for me to realize that I wasn't satisfied with, you know, my life sexually. Whether I had a girlfriend or not, I wasn't satisfied. And two, when I had a long distance relationship, it was less the this lack of satisfaction and more the want to be with somebody, physically. But my introspection on the matter would not have happened without that shaking up, the words that she said to spark that. It was an ex of mine, if I could call it that. Um, and an example of illumination is my father. He told me when I was very young that I gave too much to my friends. I did too much for them. And I did too much revolved around them. Now, this before I learned about numerology and being a life path 9, and there are nuggets of wisdom that comes with understanding that life path, whether I play into the idea that the date and time that I'm born dictates how I am psychologically. I believe that. I know people don't. It's all about frequency. But if you remove that aspect of it, you can look at the archetype of what this life path means and extract that your environment, whether it be your friends or the area you're born in. Usually just people in general tend to affect you. And that's what happened with me when it came to my friends. I did what they were doing. I wanted to immerse myself in the group. And my dad noticed that. And he told me, you do too much for them. You know? Now, it was around the time where I was a teenager, and I, of course, like other teenagers, was rebellious. I was like, all right, whatever. I wasn't overtly rebellious. I wasn't confrontational. I am not a confrontational person by any means necessary, or by any means, excuse me. But, I did just kind of brush it off like, yeah, whatever. And it took me probably around 15 years for it to eventually just for that seed to eventually be sowed. I get what he's saying. I get exactly what he's saying. I was too immersed in the groupthink and in the crowd. And with what I learn about spirituality now, being in that root chakra position of like being afraid of, not fitting in, the possibility of shame was there, and I didn't know how to assert myself, so it stuck me there. It stuck me in that root chakra position where I was just afraid to be other than. Even though I had a lot of the ideas that I have now around spirituality, even frequencies and, um, natural pathology and spirituality in general. I have had since I was a child. And a lot of those ideas were generated from that time. I didn't have the backbone to stand up for them, and so I went with the crowd and what they thought. Even though I challenged, in a fair kind of way, I I didn't I always assumed their position in my life, or I always assumed somebody else's ideas before my own, because I thought, you know what? Let me let me at least live through somebody else. Like, I tried to take on other people's identities, and the way I saw it is I was taking the best from other people and like creating this amalgamation within myself instead of looking within for the answer. And one of the reasons why I want to sharpen my speech is because of you know, this motto that I live by. There is power in simplicity. There is power in simplicity. And being able to speak through a very simple yet very effective and tactful way will be it's an amazing and effective tool in your life to affect other people's lives in a positive way and in a negative way. If you think about propaganda, it's speaking so simply and effectively, but in a way to agitate people to get them to move in a way that you want them to move. But because there is power in simplicity, I want to speak as effectively as my father did to me to other people. You do too much for them. It was so little, yet it said so much that I have just now started to understand in so many ways, in different scenarios and different experiences in my life has that played true. And the reason why there's such power in simplicity is because there's so many concepts in the world that just rhyme with other concepts. There's so much synchronicity in the world. Being able to speak is just one way. Having that ability to speak is just one way to access those synchronicities. Having the ability to speak is just one way to access the power of simplicity. So, that is my video today. I didn't think I would have one, and you know, it hit me that I, just the act of being able to speak in front of a camera could be talked about. And I also wanted to have a video talking about speech because I looked at my past videos and I saw how I drifted from topic to topic, and I wanted to through these videos I want to slowly but surely bolster my articulation and get better at sticking to a topic, forming a picture with my words, and speaking simplistically but in a very tactful and direct way. And so this video idea generated from that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me. Each time I speak in front of this camera, I feel more and more powerful, like this is where I should be. So thank you for being a part of that. I still stutter, but that doesn't mean shit. Talk soon.